Wizards announced that as the new stewards of the format, they're going to be reevaluating the Commander ban list. This means a lot of changes ahead. We're going to be discussing every single card on the ban list and whether we think they should leave it banned or take it off the list in today's episode. This episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. Looking to add hydration to your fall rituals? Liquid IV has you covered with 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks and 8 vitamins and nutrients. Their hydration multiplier plus energy blends gives you a boost of natural caffeine in delicious flavors like lemon ginger or blackberry peach. Just 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water delivers superior hydration to water alone. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code COMMAND at checkout. Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more.
Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Wong.
And I'm your other host, Rachel Weeks.
In the new studio setup, it's cooler than ever because we have multiple cameras with different angles. How exciting. Because it's going to be a turbulent time for Commander in general. It might get crazier because Wizards is saying that they're going to be evaluating the current Commander ban list. They said they're not going to ban anything new, but that doesn't mean that they might. That doesn't mean they're not going to unban stuff. And that's the possibility that's been left open. And so we're going to go through today the entire ban list and talk about what we personally think here at the Command Zone should stay on, could potentially come off. And again, this is our opinion, not official by any means.
Yeah.
So make sure that you keep that in your mind. And of course, have your own opinions as the episode goes on.
If you want to pick up any of the cards we talk about today, maybe you're excited to play with them, maybe you're hopeful it comes off the ban list, go to cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom has a huge selection of all of the products that you're looking for. If you're into Duskmourn, haven't gotten those singles yet, if you're excited about building a new deck around one of these potentially unbanned cards, they have a huge selection of singles that you can get in one place. Plus, you know that they're going to package it safely in one package, and it's all going to show up on your doorstep on time and in good shape. They get put in a little plastic container with a packing peanut, and
it's nice.
It's the best. It'll survive the wind and the rain and your mailman stuffing it in your mailbox. Plus, if something does happen, they've got a great customer service team to take care of you. Again, go to cardkingdom.com/command.
And when you get those cards, make sure you keep them safe and sound. ULTRAPRO.com/command is the place to get all of your game accessories and products that you need to keep your Magic cards safe and looking amazing. They actually have something really cool that's new. It's their Premier Playmat display. So let's say you have one of their Mana 8 playmats that you've got signed at a MagicCon, or maybe a playmat signed by the artist that drew the art. Now, instead of playing on it and having the signature rub off over time, you can actually display it in your house as though it's sort of like a mini poster with this really cool Premier Playmat display. I've seen a couple of people have this up in their house. I think Taalia was talking about it on one of her streams as well. And it's a really great way to showcase one of the awesome playmats that you had, either that was signed by people at a MagicCon or just something that has a lot of sentimental value to you. So Ultra Pro has a ton of other stuff, of course, as well. They got deck boxes, playmats, sleeves, you name it. Great ways to make your game space look amazing. So make sure you head on over to ultrapro.com/command to pick up any of that product and upgrade your collection.
The final way to support us is directly over on patreon.com/commandzone. All of our patrons get access to a ton of sweet perks, including access to extra turns and game nights a day early without ads.
Ooh.
Plus, there's bonus content that's Patreon only. You get access to Turn Talk, which is a discussion that we have after every single game of extra turns, and talk about what would have happened if we had one more turn, if we had drawn one more card, if we had one more mana.
One more mana.
It's a lot of fun, and people get to talk about what they're excited about in their decks. So join our Patreon, support the show. Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every single podcast episode. And this one is dedicated to Ryan Freeburger. Ryan, free the burger.
Free that burger.
You rock.
Yeah, what burgers are going to get freed from this ban list? So yeah, that's today's topic. So we are revisiting the ban list now that Wizards has stewardship of the format, and they have the potential here to make a really massive change that arguably could be for the health or a detriment to the format. But I think we all realize and recognize that massive change could happen. And if so, that means that the ban list is like the number one place I think people are looking at to say, hey, what could actually legitimately come off? Because some of these cards have been banned for a long time, and some of them honestly may not make as much sense as they did when they were originally put on there.
Yeah, I think we've said time and time again that one of the most important things about managing the Commander format is stability. But in the last few weeks, that stability has already been rocked, and this transition of power to Wizards of the Coast means that it could be a great opportunity to refresh the ban list, to start from a clean slate, and see what is actually problematic in today's Commander, which is very different format than when a lot of these bans were made.
Yeah, and the game design team specifically at Wizards is said to basically have control of the format now, and they are very, very talented folks over there that really know this game inside and out, and are Commander players as well, I think, notably. So it'll be interesting to see what decisions they make. But in the meantime, that leaves room for a lot of speculation and discussion, as well as just, what the community thinks. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm not putting any weight or knowledge on whether this will actually happen, but the comments of this video might be something that the game design team will peruse, or at least someone will look at, because there could be a lot of very thoughtful discussion and insightful debate about what people genuinely think has to stay on the ban list and what could come off. And for a multitude of reasons, because as we discussed before, Commander is a big dark room with a lot of different players and a lot of different reasons as to why they're here, and being able to hear a larger spectrum of opinion on why something should come off or stay on for different reasons that the game design team might not see could be very valuable. And if not valuable for them, valuable for you as a player, valuable for us as a podcasting team to see what people are saying and thinking and understanding what the sort of the temperature of the community is around sort of this stuff.
So today we're going to go through the whole list, and we're going to rank each card 1 through 4. 1 is should not unban, leave
Keep
that card
there.
banned.
Don't free that burger.
2 is should probably not unban.
Yeah.
Like you could envision a world where it could possibly be unbanned, but it's not necessarily a world you're excited about.
Yeah, but it is one that there is a possibility there that we think it could happen.
3 is you could maybe unban this card. That means that you're not sure that it's the world is safe for it in the Commander format, but you think it's likely that this card would not make a huge splash or not create the negative game patterns that it once did.
And then 4 is should unban. Take it off the list.
Free the burger.
Doesn't need to be there anymore. And we think that if it comes off, it's not going to hurt anyone to the degree that it was banned in the first, why it was taken away in the first place. There's I would say like a more subtle difference between 2 and 3, between should probably not unban and could maybe unban. But we'll get into that reasoning. Rachel and I will both give our own individual numbers for each of these cards. And then we'll have sort of like a final recommendation that's a tally between ours, or maybe after we discuss it, we decide actually this number is closer to 1 than 2. All right.
We are going to start with some of the easy ones. Let's start with the Power 9.
Power 9.
8.
Right.
Time Twister is not banned. So this includes Ancestral Recall, Black Lotus, all 5 of the Moxen, and Time Walk. Very expensive cards, very powerful cards, and have been banned since Commander's birth.
Yeah. So the Moxen are all 0 mana artifacts that tap to add. There's 5 of them, 1 of them for each of the colors. The Black Lotus, the most infamous card of all time in Magic, is a 0 mana artifact that sacks for 3 mana of any color as early as turn 1. Time Walk is 1 in the blue for a sorcery, the cheapest ever take an extra turn after this one spell. And Ancestral Recall is absurd. It's 1 blue mana for an instant that says target player draws 3 cards. Okay. My recommendation is this stays at a solid 1. These cards should not be unbanned under any circumstances.
Yeah.
For many different reasons. 1, the relative power level, way too high. And also, they're incredibly inaccessible. And I don't think unbanning a card that is one of the least printed and rarest cards in the world is going to net you any favors in terms of making a game healthier.
I agree. This is an easy one for me. Let's keep the Power 8 on the ban list.
But put the mana 8 playmats. I'm just kidding. Okay. Yeah, that's an easy one. I think our final recommendation here is let's keep this at a 1. These cards should stay banned. I do think it is interesting, though, that there are some cards that are similar to Ancestral Recall now, but they will require you, for instance, to have 20 cards in your graveyard or whatever it is to like hit a threshold. But Ancestral Recall just as early as turn 1 being 1 blue mana, draw 3 at instant speed is obviously way too powerful. There's multiple parts of it that are busted. So just play one of the other options instead. Play Treasure Cruise.
The next category of cards we're going to talk about is Dexterity Cards. There are 2 that are currently on the ban list, Chaos Orb and Falling Star.
Yeah. Chaos Orb, they both basically are the same thing, which is if it's you flip the card from a certain height and then it needs to turn over or at least to fall from a distance, and then it deals damage or gets rid of things it falls on. This is it feels like an untype of thing where it's like, let's play a game. All right, everyone move out of the way. I need to measure a foot above the table and flip this card onto things. But it could have cool effects.
Yeah, I think there's some obvious reasons to keep these banned. These are easy ones for me, besides the accessibility issue of just not everybody having the capacity to be able to do this.
Yeah.
They're extremely inaccessible in terms of price, and they're not really something that Commander players are interested or used to playing against.
Yeah, and I don't think this makes a game experience better to have someone and then debating whether or not the card flip was a legitimate or what cards were touched as it maybe a wind blew and it touched, right? It's just,
what a mess.
What a mess, genuinely. And so I'd say keep these banned as well. My recommendation is also a 1 because it's really genuinely not adding much to the game. But I will say that if your playgroup wants to rule 0 these cards in, it's much more of a doable conversation than the Moxen.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're like, hey, we do goofy shenanigans here at my house, and we have a lot of dexterity type of things, then yeah, you could rule 0 these in. But I think keeping them banned is just fine and safe. And we don't need to worry about players doing this at a Magic Con and erupting into arguments as to what cards Chaos Orb actually touched.
Oh my God.
And people filming it on their phone for like another foot, right? Like there's just too much ambiguity.
So expensive. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Final recommendation for these is 1, keep these banned.
Keep them away. Wow, we're doing easy on this so far.
Easy
Everything is
one.
staying banned.
Up next, things get a little bit more complicated. It's balance.
Yeah, now we're talking about individual cards.
So balance is a sorcery for 1 and a white. It says each player chooses a number of lands they control equal to the number of lands controlled by the player who controls the fewest. Then sacrifices the rest. Players discard cards and sacrifice creatures the same way.
Yeah.
This is an extremely powerful card that is usually combined with some way to break parity on this.
Yeah.
You sacrifice all your lands to Azuran Orb and you use some sort of effect to bring them all back, or your mana relies more heavily on artifacts. And it's mostly to wreck people's hands and mana base and board at the same time.
And can happen out of nowhere, specifically because Restore Balance is a card that comes off Suspend that is not banned, and you can see that coming from multiple turns away. So at the very least, you understand what's unless they have a way, of course, cheating it out. But balance just by itself as 1 in the white can happen out of nowhere and completely ruin the game experience, but not only that, extend it in the same way that Armageddon's can, and or just put it so favorably in one person's court that it makes a miserable experience for others. I don't think this contributes to a positive gameplay experience. We have board wipes. We have so many other ways of dealing with cards in hand and permanents on the battlefield that this does not need to be in Magic still, I think, for Commander specifically. This feels much more, fun as a 1v1 card in a cube, as opposed to a 4-player game where someone could just be entirely out of luck after it resolves.
I agree. Balance is not balanced. This is a very, very powerful card for very efficient cost. And as much as I love highly interactive, grindy white decks, I'm not sure you want to play against somebody looping a balance over and over and over again.
No. Thank you.
My recommendation is 1, keep it banned.
I agree as well. This one's pretty, this like slightly sifted into the 2 range for me because I was like, well, Restore Balance is there, but you have to jump through some hoops to have it. And I was like, you know what? Just keep it at a 1. Again, but if there weren't other effects that did similar things in a less unfun way, then you could maybe say like, well, we're just missing this effect entirely for Magic. But there are other things that do it, so I don't think this card needs to come off the ban list either.
Final recommendation is a 1.
A lot of 1 so far.
This changes now. The next card is Biorhythm. Biorhythm is a sorcery for 6 green. Each player's life total becomes the number of creatures they control.
Right. So for 8 mana, this could be kill someone because they have no creatures on the board.
This could also be 8 mana, kill everyone if there's no creatures on the board.
Yeah, this is at its core, though, 8 mana, do something. And I think you'll find that there are a lot of 8 mana win the game on the spot cards or combinations of cards that already exist. This card, I don't believe needs to be on the ban list. I'm going to give this a hard 4, which is I think it should come off.
Yeah, it's 8 mana. It doesn't necessarily win you the game. And honestly, I don't think it's the kind of win con that's problematic anymore.
Yeah.
Especially in green, which isn't very good at tutoring for sorceries. This is another way for green to win that's kind of different and new. And I don't think it necessarily has more feel bads than a Crater Hoof.
Oh, yeah, right. A Crater Hoof can end the game on the spot. It requires combat, but Biorhythm also requires players to have no creatures or very few and then die through combat damage. I think by the time you're casting 8 mana spells, like Insurrection, you're winning the game on the spot a lot of times. And so whether or not it takes one extra step or not, I think is not as consequential. Biorhythm used to be one of those like, ooh, we don't want people to feel bad about this, I think. And so we're just putting it on there. But I don't think it really needs to stay on there.
I think it was like, I think the reason that Biorhythm was banned was because of its capacity to draw the game, right? It's 8 mana, draw the game on the spot. And you have to have a counterspell to stop it if nobody has creatures in play. And I think that's a narrow situation for an expensive card that's made like only to legislate the bad actors who are going to figure out how to be salty regardless of what cards are on the ban list.
Yeah, you could just put the game into an infinite loop that's unstoppable and also draw the game at a much lower mana cost. There are ways of doing that, right?
I also have Biorhythm at a 4, which means the command zone recommendation is 4, unban it.
And no one will notice, likely.
You might play against it. It is like a powerful effect.
I play Shaman of the Forgotten Ways, which is Biorhythm on a stick with more loops to jump or holes to jump through.
But like half the reason it's good is because of the stick.
Yeah. Okay.
Up next is Braids, Cabal Minion.
All right, 2 black, legendary creature. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land.
She's so fun.
Yeah, so much fun. Now, this is each player's upkeep, so that obviously is one of the reasons I think that we thought this was oppressive originally, especially if Braids is your commander. I don't think this has the same power level that it did when Commander was not as at its current state.
Yeah, I think Braids was largely banned because you could power her out very easily on turn 1 or 2, which means you can lock
ritual,
your
right?
You can prevent your opponents from ever getting lands on the board.
Anything, yeah, because every turn, from there on out.
But here's the thing about this is I think Braids is not an issue in the 99.
No,
she's slow and is not going to see a ton of play, and if she's in the command zone, it's very easy for that table to legislate against, right? You see a Braids in the command zone and you're just like, I'm not going to play against that deck.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to do, and I'm not interested in playing against it. And it's all face-up information that you can communicate to your opponents. And if somebody wants to play a Braids deck and can find 3 people to play against, then go nuts.
Yeah, you're the same player that plays Turgid, God of Fright.
But fundamentally, this is less fun than Turgid, and it's basically the same commander.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think the self-regulation thing will contribute a lot to whether or not we believe cards should stay on or off. Because, yeah, you're right. If your table has the ability to say, like, you know what, don't build a Braids deck. We don't want to play against that on Fridays when we only have time for 2 games. That deck won't come into being. But if the player wants it in their Gix Yawgmoth deck or whatever, and because it has a similar theme, right? Then sure, that seems okay.
Yeah. At the bottom of at the end of the day, it's a 4 mana 2/2 that makes you sack a clue or a treasure on your upkeep.
Yeah.
It's not as powerful as it used to be. And the scariest place is in the command zone, which is easily legislated. Yeah. I think it's pretty easy for Braids to come off the ban list at this point.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this is a pretty easy 4, but it's the closest to 3-4 that I've said so far.
A lot of people will be like, what does Braids add to the commander format? Like, what is adding her back into the format
Does it do anything? Yeah.
Is it positive? And generally, I think, no, I don't think it improves the format, but I do think it improves the ban list. And that's something that we can really work toward, because adding or taking away, like adding or subtracting 1 card from commander, I don't think has a large impact on the format as a whole, especially one that we don't think is going to see a lot of play. So I'd rather have it not written down on the ban list and have a clearer, more concise ban list for people to read than
understand. Yeah. And again, like we said, Turgid and stuff exists. We have decks that are all about making everyone discard everything all the time. And those are very much legal. And so I think understanding it from that perspective helps as well. And also, if a card's been on the ban list for a long time, the cards are not in circulation. Players it's not like they're opening it in a new set, and they're not going to be able to jam this card into every single deck immediately. A lot of players will look at this card and still go, nah, not for me. right? And the few players that do want it in their decks are going to go, well, the deck was already kind of doing that thing.
Yeah.
And they'll get self-regulated. Ideally, I think it's pretty easy to spot a Turgid deck from a mile away and go, no thanks, not going to be into that.
Easy to just speak up for what you want or what you don't want.
Yep.
Up next is Channel. Channel is a sorcery for green. Until end of turn, anytime you could activate a mana ability, you may pay 1 life. If you do, add colorless.
Green.
Boo.
Play any Eldrazi on turn 1 or 2.
1 or 2, yeah.
The answer is a big NO from me because we have 40 life in Commander.
Play Channel. Play Channel, play a rock, play an 8-drop.
Yeah.
On turn 1, and you're still at 20 life or something.
Yeah. It's an indestructible blight steal or whatever. You're killing people the next turn. Yeah.
It makes for non-games and is banned for the same reason that a lot of the super powerful cards are banned here, because if somebody has Channel, the game's over and it's very difficult to interact with. Yeah. I think this is an easy one for me. Nobody wants to play against Channel, even if it would be really fun.
Keep it in the cube.
Yeah.
Keep it in the vintage things, but keep it away from Commander. I'm at 1.
Yeah. Final number for Channel is a 1.
So we've been agreed on everything so far, by the way. So I think that's a great sign that we are
some of these
lockstep.
are pretty easy.
Yeah,
I think.
Exactly.
And this next one is sort of the poster child for easy unbans. It's Coalition Victory.
3 and then Wooburg. So 8 mana total. You're noticing a pattern here about the cards that we think can get unbanned. To sorcery, it says you win the game if you control a land of each basic land type and a creature of each color. So you could have a 5-color commander. Mm-hmm. And then you could just have 3 shocklands.
2 Triumphs.
2 Triumphs, 3 shocklands. Play an 8-mana spell, win the game. Okay, great. You played an 8-mana spell and won the game. That is baseline for it's okay to be unbanned in my eyes. You played an 8-mana spell and it won you the game.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this is currently on the ban list because it makes for unsatisfying wins that are difficult to interact with. I mean,
so does Crater Hoof.
I think win cons are sort of that way, right? There's Torment of Hailfire is perfectly uninteractable
and not fun.
Thing, and it is a not satisfying way to win a game. And honestly, I look at Coalition Victory and I'm like, would I be excited if a game ended this way? Probably not. But the thing about Commander players is you play the game, you play it once, and you're like, I did it. That didn't feel very good. I'm taking this out. Yeah,
or I did it. I don't need to feel that I did it ever again. I did it one time. Yeah. Hooray.
I don't think Coalition Victory will see a ton of play. I don't think, even if it is in a deck, it's going to be played long term.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to take Coalition Victory off the ban list. This one's a 4 for me.
Yeah, it's a 4 for me as well. And again, similar to, Biorhythm, I don't think you're going to really see it that often if it comes off the ban list because it's not present in players' collections. And it doesn't add, I think, really too much to their enjoyment of the game to have just a win on the spot single card. And they already exist in other places. So it's not like it's adding something so fresh and new that everyone's going to be rushing to put it into their decks. And so from that perspective, I don't think a card like this or Biorhythm meaningfully changes the format in a way. And like you said, improving the ban list is the priority here. Mm-hmm. And that to me seems like a much more important thing to do.
I keep thinking about what commander Coalition Victory goes in. I'm like, what's the most powerful actual Wooburg commander? And it's Joda. And there's a million easier ways to win with Joda.
Yeah, totally.
than to cast an 8-mana sorcery while controlling Joda.
Yeah, and more fun too, right? Yeah, exactly.
Okay, up next.
Finally, a spicy one.
Dockside Extortionist.
That's right. So this card just hit the ban list, and now we're asking, should Wizards take it off?
Take it back.
1 in a red creature. When it enters, you create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments other players control, opponents.
You guys know Dockside. You love to hate it or hate to love it. I don't know. We played with Dockside in the format for a long time, and I think the prevailing feeling about it when it was banned was, it's about time.
Yeah,
it's been miserable to play against since it was printed in 2018 or something like that.
Yeah, and for the cost of 2 mana, a lot of times it creates such an insurmountable lead that it is way more impactful than a turn 1 Soul Ring. Because it's now they have 15 mana, and that is allowing them to do 3 things that just completely dominate the game as a result. And that surge ahead in mana, or they now are blinking it and flickering it and getting us over and over again. It's definitely one of those cards that is the biggest swing potential I think we've seen in a long time ever printed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Channel is a much more powerful card, and it's more of a package in itself. But like what Channel and what Dockside do to the game are similar things, right? This is a fast mana card that if an early Dockside makes a ton of treasures, it makes for non-games. Where it's just like suddenly you have 10 mana on turn 3 and we cannot compete with that.
And not just colorless mana, treasures. They're artifacts that matters for a lot of strategies. They
stick around long term.
Any mana, they can use them on later turns. Yeah, it's Channel, you do it once and you're done. And you hope that no one paths your whatever, your Eldrazi that you drop.
Yeah, and like we're certainly not arguing that Dockside is as powerful as Channel, but it is certainly more abusable and it does similar things to a game. For me, if Dockside gets unbanned, I think we'll be fine. We've dealt with it before. It's that kind of card. But I don't think Commander's a better place for it. For me, Dockside's a 2.
Yeah, it's not so obvious that it should be a straight 1 because we played with it for a while and the complaints that we saw were not so overwhelming that it made us feel like, wow, this has to come off. I think 2 is a good place for it as well. It's like a closer to a 1 than a 2 for me, but it's still kind of in that 2 area.
Yeah, I would rather they keep it banned pretty concretely, but if they unban it, I'm not going to be like, what are you doing?
yeah, exactly. It's just one of those cards that I've seen it warp games in ways that don't really, to me, belay why Commander is fun, where it's like, it's out and now everyone goes, oh, I want that Dockside too. How can I kill it and reanimate it? Or how can I, use Scarab God to bring it, right? And then the game warps around everyone trying to get a Dockside on their battlefield. And that to me is like not really what Commander is about, because it's no longer about like, hey, here's what I want to do and the cool thing I'm trying to build to, but rather I just need the most powerful thing on my battlefield and we're now all going to battle over it and feel bad if we can't get it.
Now we're really fighting over resources rather than fighting over like the cool stuff our deck wants to do.
Yeah.
All right, final recommendation for Dockside is a 2. We'd rather you keep it banned.
Yeah, I don't think that thing's coming off, to be honest.
Up next, this one is a little bit more contentious.
Yeah.
This is Emrakul the Aeons Torn. Emrakul is a 15 mana legendary creature Eldrazi. This spell can't be countered. When you cast this spell, take an extra turn after this one. Flying, protection from spells that are 1 or more colors, Annihilator 6. When Emrakul is put into a graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their graveyard into their library, and it's a 15/15.
Yeah, this thing is not dying to almost anything.
Emmy is so obnoxious. When this thing hits the battlefield, they have it. It functionally has haste because they can attack with it as long as they've cast it, of course.
Right. They're through the breaching it.
Yeah, I think that's the big issue here. I don't think anybody's thinking you're going to put Emrakul in the command zone and ramp into it. But Commander is a format of cheating mana cost. Getting a 15 drop into play isn't all that hard for this format. And when it hits the battlefield, it is insurmountable.
Yeah, unless you can board wipe, which is kind of funny that it dies to a board wipe.
Yeah, but they're going to get 1 attack out of it because of that extra turn.
The Annihilator 6 on it is quite obnoxious, for sure. That could be someone, like, more than half of someone's board by the time this is cheated out. Again, Through the Breach gets this out with haste, right? And we've seen that happen in Modern, Legacy, I don't know. It happens in other formats.
Yeah.
Cubes and all that stuff.
So Emrakul is interesting for me because normally when I'm looking at the big expensive cards on this list, I'm like, the format's probably fine to unban it. Emrakul is the kind of card that I think Commander players would be really excited to play, though. This is a popular creature that people really like. It's a very powerful card. There's a lot of decks designed around cheating mana cost. And we already know that like Ulamog and Emrakul, all the various Ulamogs and now the 2 Emrakuls, those are very popular cards in the format already. And this one is just so much more powerful and so much more just like crushing when it hits the battlefield than like even the most powerful ones that are legal in the format. That I think Emrakul would be popular. I think it would be powerful, and I think it would not generally improve the format. For me, even though Emrakul is a 15 drop, I think we cast her for a lot less than that. I'd rather see Emmy stay on the ban list.
Okay, so what's your number here for that?
I'm a 2. I think if it's unbanned,
probably stay unbanned. Or banned, sorry. Yeah, I kind of want to see this card unbanned because I don't actually know And I think in that case, I think I would rather experiment with it in the format to see where it's at, as opposed to just never understanding if it was a problem. And maybe I'm completely wrong in this estimation. Because to me, mind slavering someone with the other Emrakul that you could potentially cast for like, what, 5-6 mana or something, that to me seems more oppressive than a hard cast Emrakul that takes an extra turn. Now, I could, again, be completely wrong about this, but to me, I feel like I want to see it in action and maybe even get hit by it once for to go, you know what? That shouldn't have happened. Because to me, 15 mana, let's say it just gets cheated down to 9 or 10 or even 5 or whatever. There's still other so broken things that you can do or just win the game on the spot. I always just think it back to like Thassa's Oracle, right? If that card is here and you can get to it and win with it so quickly and easily, is an Emrakul that completely bonks one person before everyone turns on that player and makes it kind of like an archenemy situation, is it that much worse? Or is it something that we just think is so bad for that player that gets bonked that it shouldn't be there in the first place? So for that, I'm like between a 3 and a 4.
In my opinion, Thassa's Oracle is not played by casual players, and Emrakul definitely will be. So I don't think that they're like, I think it's comparing apples and oranges a little bit. Like one is a win con at lower power tables and one is a win con at higher power tables. But I could absolutely see this card coming off the ban list and being relatively fine. I just know I would be slamming it in Rakdos Lord of Riots. I'd be casting this for free with haste and getting an extra turn off of it. And it would be really
Are there any other cards in your deck that are close to the power level of what Emrakul represents for that Rakdos deck?
I mean, Walking Ballista can end the game, but if we're talking about just creatures I can cast on the battlefield, no. It's a free extra turn.
And
that's
how
also
far
15,
is it
15.
in front of the other creatures?
I'm like the next most powerful Eldrazi in that deck is probably
Like Kozilek?
the one that draws 4.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Not draws 4, fills up your hand and you can counter stuff with it.
Oh, that's not in the deck because of all the colorless pips.
Oh,
the fact that this has if this had colorless pips, I think it's absolutely fine to come off the ban list.
Okay.
But there's so many ways for this to be cast for free.
Right.
That I have a very difficult time picturing this in a way that it's like, that was fun that you did that. So you're at a 4, I'm at a 2. I think we're going to say our final recommendation for Emrakul is a 3.
Yeah, maybe closer to a 2 based on what you just said there.
I mean, I think it's worth trying. And if Wizards does a thing where they're like, look, we're going to strip back the ban list to as bare as it can possibly be. And we're going to put these 3 or like 4 cards, we're going to free them for now. And see what happens, and we'll take your feedback in like a year or whatever.
Yeah.
Then, but
or just
like
actively monitor it for a certain period of time, give people enough conventions, playtime, whatever.
That we're like, look, we're looking at these 10 cards. If you want to give feedback on these 10 cards, we're tentatively unbanning them, and we'll accept your feedback on it, and maybe they'll come back on the ban list again. I could see Emrakul being on this list. So I think 3 is appropriate. I just don't think I need to play against it. Or play. I do want to play with it, though.
Yeah, we all want to play with it. I mean, that's very interesting, right? It's a card. If it's a card that you want to play with, but you don't want to play against, does that mean it could come up? That
makes me think it should stay on the ban list.
Yeah.
If you want to play with it, and other people are like, I don't want to see that thing across the battlefield from me. That's when things I think start getting
that's truly where I think the balance between 2 and 3 lies, is kind of right in that little spot right there.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about a couple more here before we hit the mid-roll break. Erayo, Soratami Ascendant. So this is a very interesting card. It's 1 in the blue for a legendary Moonfolk monk, and it has 2 sides because it can flip upside down. And it says whenever the 4th spell of a turn is cast by anyone, flip it. And then it becomes a legendary enchantment that says whenever an opponent casts their first spell each turn, counter that spell. Okay.
This is a miserable card, and I don't think we disagree with that.
Yeah, anytime you're countering the first spell anyone casts in their each turn, it is miserable for sure.
Yeah.
It completely grinds games to a halt. The card that we compare this to is Jin Kataxia's Progress Tyrant, which is literally a tyrant of progress.
Yeah, it's like it's a 7 mana creature that counters your
spell. Yeah,
artifact.
very similarly.
Yeah. And they're miserable. But Jin is in the format, and it's honestly fine. And I don't think if this thing comes off the ban list, a bunch of people are going to be like, I'm excited to play with Erayo.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to be a problem in casual play groups.
And I think another part of the reason why it's on the ban list is because as a commander for one in the blue, you're a blue deck, you can easily chain together so many cheap spells that draw you a card, give you more mana, high tide, all that sort of stuff. That flipping it is easy, and then you create a stack situation. But at the same time, stasis exists in the format.
Right.
So I don't know if Erayo, because it already has a loophole to jump through, is going to be that bad. So I'm back on the 4 here. I think this is similar to Emrakul, where I want to see it off and see if it actually affects things, and then from there we can reevaluate.
This card rhymes with Braids for me, where it's like, if it's in the command zone and you're going to be like, no,
nah,
not that one.
Nah.
Thank you. So I think it's like, if it's in the command zone, it's very easy for players to be like, I'm not interested in playing against that deck. Thank you. It is a little bit more powerful in the 99 than Braids is. Like, this is still a pretty good card. If you're playing a Stormy deck, flipping it is sort of trivially easy.
Yeah.
But I don't think that most players are going to slam this into their Storm decks. It's just not that interesting. So for me, this one's a 3, where I'm like, this card is miserable and is not like a good thing to encourage people to put at the table, but I don't think we're encouraging it by unbanning
it. Yeah. And that's a great nuance to just specify, right? Is just by unbanning something doesn't mean that we are encouraging that it re-enter the format in a massive way. It's just saying that we want players to have more tools to play with, and this is a viable strategy in Commander, like it or not. People do play stacks decks, right? So there is something there, and for me, I'm more interested in seeing it happen, and for you, you're a little more cautious.
Yeah, so I'm like, it's probably fine if this thing gets unbanned. I don't think it's going to see a ton of play, but is it going to be fun? Probably not. I think because we're at a 3 and a 4 on this one, I think for the command zone recommendation, we're going to round towards the more cautious approach.
Totally.
And we're going to call this one a 3. So I would think we think it could probably be unbanned.
Yeah. All right. This next one is an easy answer, I think.
Oh, it's so fun, though.
Fastbond. It's an enchantment with a cute little wizard on it that says you may play any number of lands on each of your turns. Okay. And whenever you play a land, if it wasn't the first land you play this turn, Fastbond deals 1 damage to you. So you get like a mana burn type effect if you play more than 1 land a turn.
This is a single green mana, by the way.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons why I think this card does not need to get unbanned. You pair this up with any card that says play a land, draw a card. You could be just doing the Nadu thing.
Yeah, Fastbond makes for indeterministic landfall loops that we truly have enough of.
Yeah, and lands are untapped too, notably, right?
Yeah, it combines with very powerful stuff like Tatiova. It's really good when you can play lands out of your graveyard. You have something like the One Ring where you're preventing damage done to yourself. You get in infinite loop territory very quickly, specifically non-deterministic in many ways. So I agree. I think Fastbond has to stay banned, and for that reason, I would give it a 1.
Yeah, this one's a pretty clear 1. I know a lot of players out there would love to play with a Fastbond, and I just don't think it's going to make for a great time. Because this is the kind of card that says, like, here comes my 30-minute turn. I play all the lands out of my deck. I find a way to Zurin Orb and gain 1 billion life at the same time with a Crucible, right? There's just a lot of different ways that this turns into, like, Solitaire the Gathering.
Yeah, landfall decks are powerful enough. I don't think they need Fastbond.
Yeah, right. They already have the benefit of all the fetch lands and all the other cards that say play 2 lands a turn. And just we've seen the powerfulness of a single Azusa, and we're just so glad that it's a creature that can get removed, right? Yeah.
All right, we are going to continue plugging through this ban list, but first, we're going to take a break for our sponsors.
Hi there, I'm Renma, Creaking Nest, but you can call me Friendma because all I want to do is make bird tokens for everyone! But once I've made my tokens, I've got to sell them, and I'm no salesman, I'm a scarecrow full of birds! That's why I use Shopify. No one does selling better than Shopify. They've helped me in 2 or more types of ways. Using Shopify has really helped my business grow, letting me sell my tokens all over the world instead of just to my opponents. Plus, with Shopify, I get the #1 checkout on the planet with ShopPay, which helps me turn more bird browsers into bird buyers. In fact, Shopify is the business behind the business for many successful companies, including the Command Zone and Allbirds, who, despite their name, foolishly don't sell birds at all! But the fact remains, businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Because Shopify is for the birds, in a good way!
Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/TCZ, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/TCZ to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/TCZ.
We now convene a meeting of the Council of Triplers.
For damage, I am Jeska Thrice Reborn.
For tokens, we are O'Hare Talk.
And for mana, I am Nyxbloom Ancient.
Today, we add a new member to our ranks.
Welcome, Liquid IV, the hydration multiplier that delivers 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. Times 3, praise be.
I drink it before battle to keep focused and alert. 1 stick of Liquid IV plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Just tear, pour, live more.
I ramp up for my autumnal color change with their hydration multiplier plus energy. It includes natural caffeine and comes in delicious flavors like blackberry peach.
We drink it for long plane rides. We like guava.
So 3 cheers for Liquid IV, because doublers are good.
But triples is best.
Start a new fall ritual with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code COMMAND at checkout.
That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code COMMAND at liquidiv.com. All right, my new deck list is complete. Now, let's see which cards I don't already own and buy them.
Wait. How'd you do that without going through a million boxes?
Oh, I just use ARCHIDEKT. They make it super easy to upload and manage your collection. Then, when you're done brewing a deck, you can sort it by collection status to see what you already have.
So this group is just cards you don't own?
Yep, I just click buy this stack, and it takes me right to Card Kingdom.
Whoa.
ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest Commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
All right, we are back to talking about revising the ban list. Rachel and I are here with our legs, and we are ready to keep on talking about.
Yeah, you can see our legs.
Yeah, you got skin today.
I was gonna say, your casual
my
Fridays.
Kneecaps. Check out these flip-flops. Okay. All right, so the next card we have to talk about is one that got added on more recently. It's Flash. 1 in the blue instant. You may put a creature card from your hand on the battlefield. If you do, sack it unless you pay its mana cost reduced by 2, which is the cost of Flash. So it basically gives every creature in your hand and deck Flash, and if you want to stick around, then you pay the full mana cost at the cost of like 2 cards instead of 1.
Yeah, the thing about Flash is you don't have to pay the rest of the cost. So typically what Flash is used is to cheat in very expensive creatures that have either ETB triggers or dies triggers.
Yep.
So Protean Hulk is sort of the poster boy combo with Flash, but even something like the new Itali is very powerful.
Right.
Or like Vaultborn Tyrant is very powerful.
Right, because it comes back with a copy. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really busted things that you can do with Flash. The interesting thing about it is it didn't see a lot of play in casual when it was banned. It was banned largely because Flash Hulk, Protean Hulk, and Flash was the most predominant combo, and it all happened at instant speed, usually on top of other Protean Hulk wins. So it was made for very boring, very sort of strange gunslinger games.
Yeah, I don't know if that is still enough reason to keep it banned, in my opinion. I think Flash is totally fine because it was fine.
Yeah,
and it was
not played
specifically for CEDH. Now, again, neither Rachel or I are like deep CEDH players, so I don't know if this is like every CEDH player is just screaming at their screen to go, no, keep it banned. It needs to stay banned. But I don't think this card needs to stay banned.
I've heard whisperings from various CEDH players that they're like, it's probably fine if Flash comes off the ban list.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But I've heard from other CEDH players that they're like, Flash Hulk was never a good time for CEDH, and we do not want to go back there. So I think the Flash ban is going to depend a lot on the advisor that Wizards of the Coast gets from CEDH.
Yeah, and whether or not they believe
and what they think about Flash. And I think whether it stays on the list or off the list is going to be an answer for CEDH.
Right.
For casual, which is what we know best, Flash is totally safe to come off the ban list, I think. I would call this one a 4.
Yeah, I would call this one a 4 as well. And there are more expensive ways of doing what Flash is doing as well in the format that are totally fine. I don't think, because I've never had a problem with it prior to it, that it wouldn't be a problem if it came back.
Yeah, in casual Commander, this is a fancy sneak attack, kind of. I mean, it's cheaper and it's in blue, but I don't think it's going to be very popular in casual decks. And if CEDH is like, yeah, we don't care, then unban it. There's no reason it needs to be here.
Yeah.
Final recommendation from us is a 4 pending notes from a CEDH player.
Take it off! Unless someone else really doesn't want to take it off. Okay, next up is Gifts Ungiven, a classic. 3 in the blue instant, search your library for up to 4 cards with different names and reveal them. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards, put the chosen cards into your graveyard and the rest into your hand, then shuffle. This used to be instant win the game type of card, right?
Yeah.
Because there are certain combinations that you can do with it.
Yeah, it tutors 4 cards to accessible spaces that usually combine a combo, a way to recur it from the graveyard, and a redundant piece of
so that no matter what,
kind.
the opponent can't make a choice that doesn't get you what you want.
So it's 4 mana, instant speed, somebody wins the game. The thing about Gifts Ungiven is it is a very powerful tutor that has a redundant effect intuition that is legal in the format and is much, much more expensive. I think banning a tutor like this just bans the cheaper of the 2 options, which is frustrating. Intuition has plenty of piles that you can make infinite combos with. And it's already limited by the fact that most low power tables, most casual tables, are not playing infinite combos that you can assemble with this and are not interested in them. They're like tutors in particular are very well segmented, I think, in terms of casual play and powerful play. And Gifts Ungiven just isn't that different from intuition.
Yeah, I don't really... this is one of the cards when I first started playing, I saw it was banned. I went, but why? And maybe it's because I'm not in the target audience that is using this to try and win immediately with it or build my decks in such a way that I always have a Gifts Ungiven pile that I can create. And for that reason, I don't think it's one of those cards, like you said, that is going to make it into decks in such a way that it starts to harm the format. And I don't even think it will see that much play, honestly, because there's a lot of brain power that goes into choosing gifts piles, and maybe some players just don't want to do that as well. So it's one of those cards that I think, if it's unbanned, it doesn't actually have the effect that we're afraid of.
Yeah, I agree. I think Gifts honestly just adds kind of a cool dimension to higher power decks, especially if some of the fast mana stays banned. Yeah. This is a cool new toy that they get to brew with. So I think final recommendation for Gifts Ungiven is a 4. Let's try it off the ban list.
Let's see what happens.
Up next, Golos, Tireless Pilgrim.
Yeah, Golos.
5 mana, legendary artifact creature. When Golos enters, you may search your library for a land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle, then 2 Wooburg : so it's an activated ability. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn without paying their mana cost.
Okay.
Golos. So Golos was banned because it was the most popular commander in the format. By far. It was 5 colors. It
5 colors, but choose how many colors you actually want to play in the deck.
Yeah,
basically.
because it's colorless, so there's no limitation to how you cast it. Plus, he sort of deals with half of his commander attacks, so it's a thing that you can cast repeatedly. Basically, Golos was banned because it's just one of the best commanders for any deck and any strategy available. Yeah,
and it was potentially leading to more format boredom. As a result.
And or less format diversity.
Yeah.
The interesting question here is how much is Wizards interested in that? How much are we worried about that? You know?
Yeah, I personally didn't see that many Golos decks running around in the same way that, I didn't see that many Urza Lord High Artificer decks running around except for more powerful tables. But I don't know if it would make a huge difference if Golos was unbanned right now. I think the way that the commander is being designed for is that players are being slowly pushed into more niche strategies with more specific cards, and cards like Golos actually lose their coolness over time because it is just kind of creating a redundant, more boring experience for players, in my opinion.
I think the Golos ban is sort of comparable to the Lutri ban, where it's not as extreme, obviously, but the idea that Golos could just be anywhere, and if a commander player decided they didn't want to be creative, they could just pick Golos and it's
just
fine.
run
and
with
that's
that,
it.
yeah.
I don't know how much that is the reality of the format. I think most players are very attached to their commanders and choose it for very specific reasons. Either they like the flavor or the strategy, or they like exactly what the deck does. And like, if a player wants to build 5-color good stuff piles with Golos as the commander, that's kind of fine. And I think there's a lot of options to do that if they want to do that anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, why Golos is so much worse than Kenrith or Joda or, various 5-color piles.
And I do remember this being a very controversial ban as well when it did hit. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess it is true. You could play a mono white deck and finally have a commander that ramps you. It's like having Solemn Simulacrum in the command zone. Yeah. But I don't know. It just feels like it's not doing enough to harm the format to justify it not being there.
Yeah,
But I could be wrong.
I go back and forth. So numerically, I think this one's very interesting because the more we talk about it, the closer to a 2 I am on it. I'm like, you know what?
It's just keep it off.
It's probably fine to leave this banned, right? They wouldn't create a commander that's this generically good in 5 colors that's colorless again. And maybe providing Golos, and it was the most popular commander. Like, it just was played a lot.
Yeah.
So it's possible that there is a real benefit to having Golos on the ban list. It's possible that there isn't. I'm right on the line between 2 and 3.
It's so hard to tell with a card like this. Let's just say I'm a 3 and you're a 2.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to a 2.
Okay. And so Command Zone's recommendation then will be a 2.
2. It's probably better for it to stay banned.
Yeah, this next one's an easy one, though. It's Grizzlebrand.
Grizzlebeezy.
4 black. For a 7/7 flying lifelink, pay 7 life, activate ability, draw 7 cards. AKA, you could do this 6 times with your life total in Commander and not die. Right?
6 times is 42.
5 times with your Commander.
There we go.
And then you hit once with him and gain the life back.
Yeah, and he can be reanimated, and he can be
cheated out
ritualed
super
out.
easily. Yeah, Necropotence at the very least, you got to wait till your end step to get the cards. Grizzy B is drop it, draw 30 cards right now.
Here's the thing: is how bad is that? I don't know. I'm a 2 on Grizzlebrand, where I'm like, yeah, you're right. It should probably stay banned. It's not great, but this is an 8 mana creature that you cannot cast, and you have to pay 7 life at a time.
Right.
You do have to you have to spend the resources to get this thing in your graveyard, get it onto the battlefield, then you have to activate it and hope that you figure it out from there.
It's very good in 40 card piles in Vintage because you know what your win con is, and it's easy to draw into.
It's so high in this format.
Yeah, the variance is high. I think 2 is probably better for it, but I know how badly I want to play with this card, and I know how many decks I would just instantly jam this into just to have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, Bolas and Citadel is in the format, it's everywhere, and this doesn't cast the cards for you, but it draws you much more efficiently, so it's probably would see a fair amount of play.
It would see a lot of play. I think a lot of players would just also be like, Grizzlebrand's my commander, that's it, and I'm running a demon deck or whatever, I'm gonna cheat this out with Kali or whatever it is. I think this for me is unfortunately a 1, even though in my heart I want this to be a 3.
Yeah, that's how you know it's got to stay banned.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm a 2.
You're
Jimmy's
a 2.
a 1, which means the final recommendation is 1. I think you got to keep Grizzlebrand.
Sorry.
banned.
Put them in your Vintage cube.
Up next is Hull Breacher. 2 and a blue for a creature, a merfolk pirate with flash.
Ugh.
If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead you create a treasure. It's, you know what a treasure is. It's a 3/2. Hull Breacher sucks. Keep it banned.
Keep it banned. This is it's not, we don't even need to talk about this. Just keep this at a 1. This is obviously so crappy with windfalls and wheels where everyone loses everything. And not only that, you get treasures instead as a person casting it. This comes out flash speed, so it can be on an end step into a windfall. No thanks.
No. Hull Breacher is brutal, and on top of it being brutal, it's also really fun to play, which means keep it banned.
Yeah, that's out of here. That one's easy. Next one up is Iona, Shield of Emeria, 6 white, white, white. As it enters, choose a color. Your opponents can't cast spells of the chosen color. I think this card absolutely does not need to be banned.
Yeah.
Sucks if you're a mono white deck and Iona comes out and names the color that you are.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like this ban was one of those ones that was kind of a statement ban when it happened. And I generally disagree with the statement bans that's trying to push a format in a way that can be self-regulated and policed otherwise. I do understand why Iona was banned, and I can understand how miserable it is. I've seen Josh Lee Kwai get Iona when he was playing a mono green deck, and I laughed, but he was not laughing. But I don't think that it's that so bad that it stays banned and it needs to stay banned. So I'm like a solid 4 on this.
Yeah, I'm a 4 for Iona as well. It's the kind of, like, there's a lot of really miserable, expensive angels.
Yeah.
And I don't think this one, like, is all that different from the one that just says you have protection from creatures and instants and you cop. Like, it's a win con.
Yeah, it's
and
a 9 mana spell as well. Yeah, you can cheat it out. It's a creature, but it is what it is, I think.
I don't think Iona's the kind of thing that you need to point to. Some of the stuff in Commander sort of fades into the distance because players don't play it, right? And I think Iona was that kind of card where until you played against it, you didn't know it existed. So it just didn't really enter casual piles. And it shouldn't go in precons, and it's not fun to play against, but I don't think that's enough to keep it on the ban list. I think your final recommendation for Iona is 4.
Yeah, just unban it. And I think you'll find that, like, before it was banned, it wasn't causing problems in the way that it was banned for, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we could be wrong. You never know. Okay, next up is one of the cards recently banned. It was Jeweled Lotus. 0 mana artifact. Tap it, sack it, add 3 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast your commander.
We've talked about these bans kind of at length.
Yeah, we don't need to spend too much on this. I'm personally okay with this card potentially coming off. I'm at a 3 on this. And
I think these bans were good for the format. I'm at a 1. I think that Wizards should stick to the rules committee's guns, and they made a big choice. And I think it's for the good of the format. And I'd rather see it locked behind a ban list than re-enter the format pool. So
yeah, and I'm personally a player that likes that to have the option to play these high-powered fast mana games, and I think there's a lot of fun in that. So I personally was not for the bans. I was okay with Dockside Nadu, but not so much with Crypt and Jewel Lotus. I also do have the belief that if you want to play like a 7 mana commander in this day and age, that Jewel Lotus lets you play that, and so I liked it for that as well. That you could have a clunkier deck, but jam a Jewel Lotus in there and have a standing chance against faster decks. But I completely understand the other side of the argument, and I think it's yet to be seen if it makes the format quote unquote better, because again, in like, let's say 2 years of playing, I encountered Jewel Lotus 10% of the time, and
I'm not even that. Yeah,
and it didn't lead to what I would call games that like made me dismayed with how it was going.
Sure.
But it could be that game itself was already higher powered, so it didn't have the effect that it might in a lower power environment. But I'm personally going to be on the side of 3. But I understand fully why it was banned, and I get it, and I think it remains to be seen if it will truly make the format a quote unquote better thing for everyone.
Yeah, it's tough to make these kind of decisions, right? I think these are taste cards, and if they were printed back when a lot of the fast mana on the list was banned, I think they'd probably be banned, right? Like if they banned Mana Crypt at the beginning, then it would probably it's still banned, and we wouldn't bat an eye. It
may never have been printed.
Yeah,
in
like
that case,
this
right?
many times.
Yeah.
And obviously there's ramifications for these things getting banned, and we've talked about those at length. Them getting unbanned all of a sudden, I think players would be like, wait, what is going on?
Yeah, a lot of whiplash would definitely be happening.
So this is a complicated one that I think we're going to leave firmly on Wizards' plate. I'm pro leaving it banned at a 1. Jimmy's bring it off the list at a 3. And that means our final recommendation is 2 is probably should stay banned.
Okay. Next up, we got Caracas.
Ugh. Easiest stay banned of my life.
Easiest stay banned of my life.
This is a legendary land
Ugh.
that says tap, add white, and tap, return target legendary creature to its owner's hand. This makes white just skyrocket in terms of how powerful it is. Caracas is an unbelievable Magic card.
Yeah, even if it said return target legendary creature you control to its owner's hand, it's still an unbelievable Magic card. That's why I want to play with it, but that's why I also ultimately know that this card is nowhere near ever going to see an unban because it just is oppressive and not fun, repeatable, and on a land that also can just tap for mana.
It's so easy to tutor for. Yeah.
So easy to tutor for.
So many reasons to leave Caracas banned. Easy one.
Easiest one of my life out of this whole list. Sad.
Up next, Leovold, Emissary of Trest. Black, green, and a blue for a legendary creature elf advisor. Each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. He's a 3/3.
Yeah, I think this is safe to unban. It's a 3-mana commander, and it pairs really well with Windfalls, where it makes everyone not be able to draw anything, and it does kind of replace itself when it gets targeted. But I don't know. To me, this is like closer to like Notion Thief than it is to
flash.
Yeah, I don't think this needs to stay banned. I think this was another one of those statement bans along with Iona that I just generally personally disagreed with. I'm putting this at a 3.
I have Leo at a 3 as well for a lot of the same reasons that we have Erayo and Braids kind of higher, where it's like, I think it's most problematic in the command zone where it is most easily policed. If you're the kind of pod that you're comfortable with somebody playing Leo and wheeling and fighting on that axis, I think you should be able to do so. And it's face up on the table. You get to make a statement when it happens. If Leo's in your 99, that means you're Sultai and a Wheels deck, which means you're probably very powerful anyway.
Already, yeah.
So I'm not super concerned with leaving Leo banned. Obviously, he's not super fun, so I think that's my hesitancy there. But that does mean that our final recommendation for Leo is a 3.
It's a 3. All right, moving on. Library of Alexandria. This is an oldie but a goodie. It's a land that taps, and you can tap it to draw a card. Activate if you only have exactly 7 cards in your hand. I think this is really similar to Caracas. Mm-hmm. I personally just don't think it's as oppressive, so I'm going to put it at a 2, which means that I would like to play with it, but it should probably stay banned because also it's so old, it's very hard to get.
Very expensive.
It's kind of like one of those Mishra's Workshop situations where it's like, if players don't have it already, then unbanning it isn't creating a situation where it's like, oh, maybe Grizzlebrand will be interesting if we see it in play. Yeah. It's just like, no, your one friend that happens to have this will be able to play it, and it's going to be very powerful, and it's not going to feel fun.
Yeah, library is extremely expensive, so the inaccessibility is a huge thing here. The interesting thing that the Rules Committee has said about library of why they've kept it banned in the past is that it's a very, very powerful effect that could go into any deck, and it could create a situation where a player has lost and not understood that it was because of the library.
Oh,
because it's a very innocuous thing to just slowly die to them having one card for free.
Over and over and over
again. So, like, if library is unbanned, I think it's right for just about every commander deck to have a library in it. That means the format is slower. Like, let's say it's $1. It's a command tower, right? That means the format is slower. That means
everyone's constantly hitting their libraries and
adding extra cards. It's a miserable card.
Not playing cards out so they can keep 7 in hand.
You can't point to like specifically that would not be fun, but I think it would create an environment where it is extremely negative. This is an easy one for me as well.
Yeah, I'm at 2, but I think your argument makes a very compelling case for 1, and that's why our commands and recommendation is 1, keep this card banned. Keep it brand.
Up next, Limited Resources, a wonderful podcast, a terrible enchantment.
It sucks.
For a single white. When Limited Resources enters, each player chooses 5 lands they control and sacrifices the rest.
Okay.
Players can't play lands as long as 10 or more lands are on the battlefield.
Designed for 1v1, where you'd play it and both players are stuck at 5, and then you have 10. Now that you're in Commander, you have 20 lands on the battlefield, and no one can play lands anymore.
Ever.
Until they get rid of limited resources. Not only is this resource denial, it does so in a way that locks the game into a different sized box than it's supposed to be. Caracas was the easiest one of my life.
Yeah.
Another one of the easiest ones of my life.
This is a big one, for sure.
Yeah. Keep this card banned. It does not contribute anything to the format. Armageddon exists. They could play that.
I would like to speak to the person who's excited about limited resources
coming off the
unbanned.
ban
I don't
list?
think
Yeah.
they exist.
I don't think they probably do. Let's not close that door possibility entirely, but whether or not it's good for Commander is a pretty definitive no. Including this next card, in my opinion, Lutri the Spell Chaser. A lot of talk about this. It's a companion. So you can have this outside of the game in addition to your deck if you fulfill this clause, which is each non-land card in your starting deck has a different name. So
That's our rule already.
Non-land. So that means every single Commander deck that can play blue and red can probably run Lutri.
Except for my Dragon's Approach
Except for
deck.
your Dragon's Approach deck or Persistent Petitioner's
Sure,
deck,
yeah,
I suppose.
yeah.
And it specifically is a 1 and then 2 hybrid mana, blue, red. For when it enters, if you cast it, you copy an instant or sorcery you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Dual Caster Mage, Reverberate. A lot of cards already do this. This is another one of the easiest ones in my life because I just despise the idea that if this is unbanned, like Library of Alexandria, every single deck that can run it should plausibly run it. It will drive the price up for no reason. And this effect is already everywhere in Magic, so it's not like it's adding a new fun thing. It's just creating a more of a problem and more of a just like, oh wow, every blue-red deck is now slightly advantaged because they can play Lutri for free.
Yeah, this is an easy one. I guess they could do a band as a companion. I don't think that is necessary.
A single ban list card
I
for
don't
band
think
as
that's
companion?
necessary.
Yeah, no
I think
thanks.
it's cleaner and makes
Yeah.
more sense. Just ban Lutri.
Yeah, ban Lutri, never see it again.
Easy
we don't
one.
need to. Easy one.
Less easy. Mana Crypt. For a 0 mana artifact at the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you. Add colorless.
I'm firmly on a 4 on this one.
Yeah.
I think this was a mistake of a ban. I think this was a card that has so much iconic significance in the game. I see cards like Mana Vault. I see cards like Soul Ring that still exist that to me lend credence to this card not needing to be banned. I personally will always be on the side of I think this card can be unbanned and it will be fine. But I understand again why it was banned.
Yeah, I've said before that I think these are not great for the format and should have been banned long ago, along with Soul Ring.
Yeah. And
but
if that was the case, I would be okay with it being banned, right?
For sure.
If when I started playing Commander, Mana Crypt was a no-no, I'd be like, yeah, okay, fine, makes sense.
Yeah, I think for the most part, Mana Crypt exists in the place that it's is relatively healthy. Obviously, there's issues with certain players getting out to faster starts. I don't know. I think I could go up to a 2 on a Mana Crypt.
Yeah.
I would rather play against a Mana Crypt than a Jeweled Lotus, which I know doesn't make any sense. But it's just the kind of card that's been in the format forever. It's an iconic thing, and people have the crypts that they've played in their decks for years.
Literally decades for some people.
I think this is a sentimental card that could comfortably be unbanned, although I think most people would prefer it stay banned. I don't even believe that. I think there's a lot of people who would. I don't know about most. There's a lot of people who would prefer it stay banned.
Yeah, I would say if Wizards unbans cards and Mana Crypt is on there, I would not be surprised at all. But I also would not be surprised if it stays banned. But to me, this is one of those obvious ones.
Yeah, banning Mana Crypt was a very bold choice that made a decision for a lot of players all at once. I personally think that like sticking to the guns and getting fast mana out of the format improves Commander long term, but what are you going to do? It's been here. You can't really.
Yeah. And I'm the guy that says if you're going to ban Mana Crypt, then just ban Soul Ring. But obviously that's not going to happen.
Kind of into that though.
I'm into it too. I would be totally. I take Soul Ring out of my decks now, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is I'm also the player that has 2 or 3 decks that has the Mana Crypt, has the Jeweled Lotus, or had in there because those were aiming to have a very specific type of game. And when I played against other players that were trying to have that type of game, I found it enjoyable. Now that again is my personal experience, but this is just going to be one of those highly debated ones forever as a result of what happened last week and the weeks before, right? So it's just going to be up there
because it's so hotly debated. It's the kind of card that should probably it could be unbanned.
Yeah, it's
like,
right between 2 and a 3.
I think if you're talking about the health of the format, less fast mana is better. But if you're talking about like giving players the tools to play the kind of games that they want to play, Mana Crypt should probably be on the table. Yeah, it's really tough. I think...
and it's one of those few cards that because it's been around for so long and has such an iconic memory for players and it wasn't banned out from the get-go, that it makes sense. Whereas Jeweled Lotus is like, no, this is printed into the format and we think adding that fast mana at this point is a bad idea. Let's get rid of it. So I think I would say Jeweled Lotus is a 2, Mana Crypt is a 3 or a 4, but Everyone's going to have a different opinion about
Yeah,
this, so I'm not going to try and convince you.
We'll leave Mana Crypt at 3. It is hotly debated, of course.
A soft 3.
Less hotly debated, Nadu, Winged Wisdom.
This is a 1. The end. Let's move on. This game, this
is
creates
a miserable card.
50-minute turns where you don't actually win the game. You just re-equip everything. The text on this is a nightmare to even figure out because every creature has this ability. Like, no thanks. I just get Nadu out of here.
No, I agree.
We don't need to talk about
ban
it.
Nadu, moving on. Panoptic Mirror is next. This is a 5 mana artifact with imprint. It says X tap. You may exile an instant or sorcery with mana value X from your hand. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may copy a card exiled with Panoptic Mirror. If you do, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So you put a Wrath of God on this, and every turn you can cast a Wrath of God.
Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah. I think that this just costs so much mana to do. 5 mana, then 4 mana for a Wrath of God, that it's, to me, no different than finding a way to loop a Archaeomancer to just get the card back and cast it each time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there are ways of getting the Panoptic Mirror effect. Now, obviously, it's colorless, can go in every single deck, but 5 mana for the mirror by itself makes it unplayable in a lot of situations.
The reason that it was banned is it's an infinite turns combo,
Sure,
which
yeah, you
we
put
should mention. You put a Time Warp under it, and it casts a Time Warp every turn, right? It's a 10 mana, take infinite turns.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways to take infinite turns in Commander. If that is this card's only crime, then obviously it should be unbanned. It's an easy 4. I think the reason it was banned is because it is unfun to cast the same thing over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you can do annoying things with a Wrath of God.
Right.
But the decision was it was too repetitive.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair conclusion, but I just don't think that many players are going to play it.
Yeah, again, X, you have to pay X, which is the mana value of the card, and then tap it. And then you have to wait until your next upkeep to start doing it. So I think those factors by itself will not create scenarios that are so oppressive that players go like, why is this card off the ban list compared to even the Braids, you know? So
Yeah. It's also, you can do kind of cool stuff with it.
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's pretty safe to unban Panoptic Mirror.
Yeah, I'm at a 4 on this.
I'm at a 3. I'm a little lower. Like, there are definitely situations where it's like, all right, I pay 8 mana and I board wipe every turn. And you're like, yeah, that's really annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, sounds like what 8 mana could do.
Like, it's a very slow way to win the game, which
You
is
can also
annoying.
just blow up the mirror. I think
yeah,
that's something too.
But if you want to be annoying, you can be annoying already. So I'm at a 3 where it's like, I don't know if I want to play against it, but it's probably safe to unban.
Yeah.
That means we're rounding down to a 3. You can probably unban it.
All right, next cup is Paradox Engine, another easy 1 from me. This card is similar to Nadu in that it says whenever you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents you control. This just allows certain decks to, again, take that classic 30-minute turn that is not fun for anyone. I think this is an easy one. This card was fun while it lasted. Enjoy your time with it, but does not need to make it bad in the format, because when people play this card, it leads directly to unfun situations. Whereas Panoptic Mirror, you're like, oh, maybe you're doing something cool with it.
Yeah.
That's based on your Timmy or Johnny thing, you know?
Yeah, maybe you're making 2 goblins a turn with a little goblin fodder under there.
Woo-wee.
Dragon fodder, excuse me.
Hordling Outburst, 3
Ooh.
goblins. Yeah, but Paradox Engine is not that.
No, this card's miserable. This is a 1 for me as well. Whenever you cast a spell, untap all talk about non-deterministic loops.
Man. Yeah.
It's awful to play against. It's fun to play. And if you want to play it, you can sit in your house and do little Paradox
build
Engine
your
loops
Nadu
all by
Paradox
yourself.
Engine deck.
And goldfish it, because that's how it would feel to play against your opponents anyway.
Build your Paradox Engine Nadu Library of Alexandria deck and understand why it's just
This card's
not a fun game for other people.
if you want to play Paradox Engine and Nadu, play Brawl.
Yeah.
It's
There you go.
awful.
Yeah.
This easy one for both of us. Let's leave Paradox Engine banned.
All right. Next up is the card that I always mention when it comes to unbanning. It's Primeval Titan. 4 green creature. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, search your library for up to 2 land cards, put them on the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. I want this card off the ban list so badly.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's fine.
Yeah.
There's so many things that green can do that are so busted in putting lands on the battlefield that Primetime is just like, oh, it's just 6 mana creature that, yeah, sure, you can flicker it, attack with it, but it's
just old Gnawbone
it's
is so much worse.
Yeah,
like,
right?
It's just immediately worse.
Yeah, now obviously you can get your Merit Lage, whatever, right?
Yeah,
Dark
if you can win a
Depths.
Commander game with Merit Lage Dark Depths, good on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more likely they get like Field of the Dead Vesuva or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I agree. Primeval Titan is from another era of Commanders. 6 mana creatures with ETBs are par for the course. 2 lands ain't so bad.
Now, any lands, yeah, I get it. It could result in like, oh, it's a very oppressive, it's a Glacial Chasm or whatever it is. But I just don't think that...
In that case, Glacial Chasm's the problem, right? It's not Primetime.
Yeah. They could have crop rotations, right? And playing a 6 mana card to get it, and it's repeatable, sure, but I just think that the format has evolved to the point where Primetime is not the problem it used to be, and as a result, if you took it off, I think players would be happier just to have a Primetime that does cool things, as opposed to, I'm only playing Primetime to do oppressive, sad, awful things.
Yeah, Primetime 4, unban it.
Unban it.
Free the time.
And then we're going to, in 2 weeks, be like, why did we say that? This is the worst.
Speaking of the worst, it's Prophet of Krufix.
Oh, man.
3 green-blue for a creature human wizard. Untap all creatures and lands you control during each other player's untap step. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash.
Oh, man.
You played Commander when Prophet of Krufix was around.
Yeah, Josh and I, we jammed it in every single deck that we could. Now we just have Seedborn Muse, and
that's still miserable.
it is miserable, yeah. And I would be fine if they banned Seedborn Muse, honestly.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So I think Prophet of Krufix, as much as I would love for this to be unbanned to remember the good old days, I'm going to put it at a 2, but it's probably closer to a 1. It doesn't really need to come off the ban list.
Yeah, I don't. I have no interest in playing against this card again. It's a 1 for me.
Okay. Easy. Well, I'm glad that we're going through some of these easy ones.
Yeah.
This next one is a fun one. Recurring Nightmare, 2 in the black enchantment. Sacrifice a creature, return it to its owner's hand. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. This is like the most consistent way to constantly reanimate things out of your graveyard. It's hard to interact with because it bounces itself to your hand and is very powerful, but I think it's fine now. In today's Magic, it's okay.
Yeah, they just printed another one that's a 2 mana and it's not seeing a ton of play.
Chthonian Nightmare, yeah.
Chthonian Nightmare is awesome and really fun. And it does exactly the same thing as Recurring Nightmare. I guess it can be removed.
Yeah.
I think Recurring Nightmare is a 3. Like, yeah, it's annoying for them to cast the same card over and over again, but it's 3 mana. And like, how many times are you going to cast it in a turn? Twice?
Yeah.
That's not nearly the longest chain of things you can put together in Commander.
Yeah, 3. The fact that it's at 3 mana, sadly, is like, it's not that busted.
No.
But
I think it's cool. I think it's a fun new toy. I would love to see Recurring Nightmare enter the card pool again. I could understand if they keep it banned because of the price. It is on the reserved list and will get
I see. Yeah.
really expensive very
yeah.
fast. But it's fun. I think it's probably okay if this card becomes unbanned.
Yeah. So we'll put it at a 3 for both of us.
Yep.
All right, next up, Raphellos, Landwar Emissary, green, legendary creature, elf, druid. You can tap it to add green for each forest you control. It's kind of like a Gaia's Cradle type effect, but it cares about forests. Could be your commander, which is sort of why I think it was banned originally. Mm-hmm. I think this card is fine.
Yeah, in the 99, this is not an issue, right?
Yeah, in the 99, not an issue. Like, green decks, I don't think have a huge problem pumping out the mana they need to win the game because of all their mana dorks and other things.
They're also very powerful. They can make a lot of mana already. I don't think like banning Raphellos is the holding back the floodgates of green ramp.
Yeah. I'm going to put this at a 4, but I could understand why this card also stays banned.
I have this at a 2. I'm a little lower on it because unlike the other commanders, it's harder to point to why you wouldn't want to play against Raphellos deck. Like if your opponent sits down and they're like, I'm playing Raphellos, you're like, that's a very powerful deck, and it's harder to say, I'm not interested in playing against a deck powerful. And it's not necessarily easy to point to it and be like, that's a very powerful deck. So I think it's harder for players to figure out why Raphellos is so good. So I have it at a 2, which means our final recommendations for Raphellos is a 3.
Yeah, I think if you see it unbanned and we just test it out to see where it's at, I don't think it will be as wild or as oppressive or as unfun as it sort of may seem.
Sure. I think that's fair. Oh, right. Another one.
Another easy one from both of us. Shahrazad, white, it's a sorcery. Players play a Magic sub-game. Basically, you stop everything, you play another game of Magic using their current libraries as their decks, and each player who doesn't win that sub-game loses half their life rounded up. This is the most unnecessary card ever.
It's such bad card design. This is a 1.
So stupid,
You
yeah.
can't give this to commander players. They
Never,
would do
ever.
ridiculous things with it.
Yeah, and just the fact that it's like,
Just
hey, this
cast it
commander
over
game...
and over and over again.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
This commander game that was already an hour long is now going to go to 5 hours because we needed to play a sub game within the game. It's like, no thanks.
for 2
For 2 mana, yeah. If
That's
this was like a
absurd.
12 mana card, maybe. But
Eternal Witness Shahrazad. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah, because your graveyard's still there, right?
yeah.
Okay. And if you had,
All right.
Yeah, and then you have to like change the rules too of commander. Like if you play it again, is your commander accessible to you? Like, no thanks.
There's a lot of questions and nobody wants to know the
Yeah,
answers.
yeah.
Up next is Sundering Titan,
Hey.
the colorless brother to Primeval Titan. 8 mana for an artifact creature golem. When Sundering Titan enters or leaves the battlefield, choose a land of each basic land type, then destroy those lands. This is 8 mana, kill 5 lands, and when it dies, kill another 5.
You can't. It's not for each player. It's 5 total. I think it's 8 mana. I think this card won't even see that much play if it's unbanned. I think this is a 4.
If you want to blow up lands, there's a lot easier ways to do it. than
Yeah,
Sundering
exactly.
Titan.
Yeah.
And putting it on the ban list doesn't say don't play Armageddon. It says don't play Sundering Titan.
Yeah.
So I think I'm at a 4 as well. If you're going to welder Sundering Titan in and out, then that's between you and your playgroup.
Yeah, good for you. There's other things you could do that are way more oppressive and not fun. Sundering Titan is just an 8 mana artifact creature golem. I could see people just wanting to play this occasionally in certain decks, but even then, I think you have better options at 8 mana. I think you're better off playing Citywide Leveler
Sure.
than Sundering Titan. So.
I mean, just Portal to Phyrexia.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, Sundering Titan kills all the lands, but you're still dead to their board when they swing everything at you.
All right. Sundering
yeah.
Titan is a 4 for me.
4, unban this guy.
Yeah, next up is another one that we think is pretty easy here. Sway of the Stars. You'll notice that the cards that we all are fine unbanning are all like 8 mana plus.
They're like
by
a
the way.
million mana. Yeah.
Sway of the Stars. Sorcery, 8 blue. Each player shovels their hand, graveyard, and permanents they control in their library, draws 7 cards. Each player's life total becomes 7. This actually makes the game faster, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that it fundamentally resets the game, right?
Yeah.
It starts the game over. It's kind of like Shahrazad-ish. But this is 10 mana. You start with a full 7, and it progresses the game all the way down to 7. It's sudden death round.
It's like Shahrazad if it was a fixed version of Shahrazad.
Yeah, which is like, I get we don't want this effect necessarily, but I don't think people are going to play it, and I
Yeah.
don't think when it does happen, people are going to be like, why?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's totally fine.
Yeah, you can
And-
unban Sway of the Stars. That's a 4 for me.
Yeah, it's a 4 for me, and honestly, it won't change a thing. No. Next up, 7 mana spell, Sylvan Primordial, 5 green. When it enters, for each opponent, destroy target non-creature permanent that players controls. For each permanent destroyed this way, you get to find a forest card and put that card on the battlefield tapped from your library.
Very powerful, but you kill your Ristic Study, your land, I get 3 forests for 7 mana.
Yeah.
How good is that?
It's okay. There are already spells that get rid of 3 opponents' things for much cheaper that are better, that maybe even exile them. Right? There's like Grasp of Fates type stuff.
Yeah.
Sure, you get the forest, any type of forest on the battlefield, but I think, again, 7 mana,
Yeah, this is just ETB.
it's fine.
Like the concern is you can blink it, I guess, but if like you're blinking 7 drops, that's a big plan you've put together. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think if we're making big changes to the commander ban list, I think taking Sylvan Primordial off is just fine. 4 for me.
4 for me, unban it. Nothing will change.
Yeah, I think you'll see some Sylvan Primordial, and I think
Sure.
you won't be super stoked to see it. But like, it's also Terrastodon, right? Like, how different is this?
Yeah,
Terrastodon
yeah.
can blow up lands.
And it'll grab you forest. Cool. Yay.
All right, I have 7 mana. I don't need these forests.
Yeah, there you go.
Up next is Time Vault. For 2 mana, this is an artifact that enters the battlefield tapped. It doesn't untap during your untap step. If you would begin your turn while Time Vault is tapped, you may skip that turn instead. If you do untap Time Vault,
None of that matters.
take an extra turn after this one.
Yeah, 2 mana artifact enters tapped. So many ways to untap this. And you tap it immediately, take an extra turn.
It's so cracked. It's $1 million. It's so busted. It's in every single it goes infinite with an artifact untapper.
Yeah, no-
Time Vault's like easy one.
Easy one, never unban this card. Not good for the format. Next up, another card that arguably is pretty similar. Tinker, 2 in the blue sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sack an artifact. Search your library for an artifact card, put that on the battlefield, then shuffle.
This is very powerful.
Yeah, I don't think this makes the format better. I think it's just a tutor as well as one that you can get out really quickly, and then it results in a situation that is not necessarily adding to the gameplay fun.
Yeah, I think this makes for non-games, right? Like
non-games.
This just gives you either like a huge mana rock really early, it gives you a Bolus of Citadel on turn 2.
Or an unbanned Sundering Titan.
An unbanned Sundering Titan. Ooh. This just doesn't make for a game that you're satisfied with. I think it's fair that Tinker stays on the ban list. And I agree that like 2 is a possibility, but I think I'm closer to a 1 on Tinker.
Yeah, I put it at 2 just because it's like, I think as the format continues to evolve, Tinker will get less and less scary because there will be more comparable effects.
Sure.
But I think it's still too powerful to get unbanned.
Speaking of too powerful, Tolarian Academy, a legendary land that says tap, add blue for each artifact you control.
Wow, so if it's under 2 mana or you can play it as a land, it's always going to be a 1, pretty much.
Yeah, this is certainly a 1. It's easier and easier to get this many artifacts. Like, Tolarian Academy has only gotten better since it was banned.
Oh my god.
And it's
With
only going to get
treasures.
better from here. This is an easy 1.
Yeah, and it's like Gaia's Cradle, you might argue, is also powerful, but you have to have creatures on the battlefield. Artifacts you can just spew out and create infinite numbers of in a much easier fashion, or just so many, and then they power out other artifacts. Yeah, no thanks. Sorry. I do love Tolarian Academy, though.
Yeah, it is super fun.
It's super cool.
Up next is Trade Secrets. 1 blue for a sorcery. Target opponent draws 2 cards. Then you draw up to 4 cards. That opponent may repeat this process as many times as they choose.
Yeah.
This just says 2 players draw their whole deck.
Yeah, for 3 mana.
That's absurd.
Yeah, no thanks. I don't think this card is good for the format. I think it creates a situation where everyone looks in and goes, man, why are we sitting here playing this game?
Why am I here?
Why am I here?
You chose an opponent to race. You picked the player that can race you the worst.
The worst, yeah.
And now you combo off and win the game. Congratulations. Trade Secrets is an easy one.
Yeah, it's kind of like 2 consecrated sphinxes looking at each other too. I've never had that happen where I went, I'm having fun now.
Yeah, despite Trade Secrets being printed in a Commander precon.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It is an easy one.
I could see an early designer being like, why not?
It's like a fun political card.
Yeah, look, they can decide and they don't always have to say yes. Because you draw 4 and it's up to 4 too.
It's absurd.
Right? Yeah, it's absurd. All right, next up is another easy one for us. It's Upheaval, 4 blue sorcery. Return all permanents to their owner's hands. This is not fun.
No, this is a miserable card.
And it's so different than Sway of the Stars too, because at the very least, everyone's reset the same way. Upheaval is you play all the mana rocks, you float all the mana, you upheaval, you play out your whole board again, and then you pass turn and everyone goes, I have nothing.
Yeah.
No lands and have to discard, and I'm completely reset, and now that one player just dominates the game. But not even immediately. It takes time for them to reset and rebuild their board up. It's like, nah, no thanks.
You think you don't like Cyclonic Rift?
Yeah. Upheaval is even
what
worse.
if it hit your lands?
Yeah, exactly.
Upheaval is a 1 for sure.
Easy 1.
All right, there is one more card on the ban list. It is Yawgmoth's Bargain. This is an enchantment for 4 black. It says skip your draw step, pay 1 life, draw a card.
Yeah, so this one's really interesting. It's a higher mana value card. It has so many parallels to other busted cards that are like Necropotence, Bolas' Citadel. But I think just the fact that you can pay 1 life on the turn it enters and then draw that card immediately and then use it makes it closer to the Grizzlebrand level of too powerful. So I don't think this card is great. But at the same time, I'm also like, I really want to see it in play first.
This one's a 2 for me. I don't like that Ad Nauseam is in our format, let alone Yawgmoth's Bargain.
Yeah.
Like Ad Nauseam is 5 mana, draw your whole deck if you build it right, and Yawgmoth's Bargain is 1 more mana and it's less life.
Yeah.
I think I'd prefer to see this banned. So I've got it at a 2. I think,
and I'm at a 3.
That means final recommendation for Yawgmoth's Bargain is 2.
Sadly, but probably where it should be.
There's 2 other things that people have been talking about that Wizards might change. And these are sort of discrepancies between how Wizards of the Coast and the Rules Committee have handled things in the past.
Right.
So the first question is, should they change the rules so you can play hybrid mana in decks with only one of the 2 colors?
Right.
So this would mean that like Hogak, which is hybrid green and black, could go in your mono black deck or your mono green deck.
Yeah.
This has been a rift between the Rules Committee and specifically Mark Rosewater for ages, hybrid mana was designed to be either one color or the other. And the rules committee said, no, the color identity is sacred. And we're going to, if it has both colors, it goes in the colors of both. Decks.
Yeah.
This is a big change I could see them making.
Yeah, and I could see them making it because the game design team specifically is the one that would be sort of stewarding what's happening here. And then game design wise, it does make more interesting things happen and opens up more possibilities.
Do we think that's good?
I don't personally think so, but I could see many game designers going like, no, this is something that if it happens, the players don't realize it, but us as the game designers say that, over the course of time and the way that we have things planned out will be something that adds to the fun of the format and allows for more things to get played as opposed to less.
Yeah, that kind of concerns me. The idea of them using the hybrid mana rule to print things that can go into more decks.
Yeah, totally.
Like if they could print a 1 mana removal spell that's white and black or white black, that means it goes in twice as many decks.
Yeah, that's a seller. That is something that could sell boxes.
Yeah.
Right?
So the idea that they unban it means there's more staples. That means we see more of the same cards, and that means that they consider color identity less when they're designing, which concerns me a lot. I think in terms of I could see them trying to clarify the discrepancy and just sort of waving their hand and be like, hybrid mana rule gone. Yeah. But I am worried about what that opens on the design team. So for me, this is a 2. I'd really rather them not make this change and, let the format be what it's always been.
I think so too. I always found that hybrid mana, to me, what read as both colors when I first saw it as well, instead of one or the other. And I just saw it as a more flexible way to cast the cards. So I'm going to put this at a 2 as well. I really hope hybrid mana stays the way it does.
Yeah. Final recommendation is a 2, but honestly, we're kind of a 1.
Yeah, but I think the likelihood of it happening is much higher than what we are hoping for.
Yeah, I agree.
Too many levers being pulled here.
Final question is, should they make it legal to have planeswalkers as commanders?
Nope. Never. Never.
What about
never,
Comet?
Never.
You could play a Comet deck.
No.
What about Teferi Time Raveler?
Nope.
That'll be fun.
Never, ever should this happen. I think planeswalkers are planeswalkers, and they should stay that way. Unless it says, and they already have the lever they can pull, which is say you can play this planeswalker as your commander. And we've already seen that there's not that many people that even do that. It's not that popular for a multitude of reasons. So I don't think we need to make this a decision. I'm a firm 1 on this.
This would be a huge change. This would introduce hundreds of commanders all at once, and you think we're overwhelmed with the amount of cards that are printed now. What a floodgate for them to open. I really hope that they don't make this change, but I could also see them trying to remedy that can be played as your commander and just saying you can play planeswalkers as your commander and prevent them from having to use that asterisk going forward.
And I see this as them immediately adding hours spent playing commander, like 1.2xing it instantly.
Yeah. There's a lot of powerful commanders that would be introduced to the pool that are suddenly miserable. Now you have Narset in the command zone, three mana Narset. Yeah, 3 mana
Narset, yeah.
So I don't know. I think I would prefer they don't. So I'm a 2 on this one.
Yep. So our final rec is 1. Please, let's not have planeswalkers as commanders.
Any parting notes before we leave this episode? What do you want from a Wizards of the Coast ban list?
I would love for it to be agnostic of everything that's happened recently and to not consider what went down the last few weeks, because I think the most interesting part about this is that there is a chance here to re-examine what Commander is all about and open it up in a larger way and put more trust again back into the players' hands that they're talking about with this bracket system and all that stuff that really allows us to curate the experience that we truly want from the game, and understanding that while there will be occasional feel bads and pub stompy type moments, that is by far not the norm, and that the more trust we can put into the players' hands, the better the format will be over the long term. And I think taking cards off the ban list in a larger way to make a sort of this is what we see Commander as is something that I could see has the highest potential benefit, but it needs to be handled very carefully.
I think this already marks a new era for Commander. I think we're at a turning point, regardless of if they make aggressive unbans or not.
Yeah.
So I'm I would like them to use this time to start fresh, make a ban list that is more considered for modern Commander, and take a lot of cards off the list that people just would never have considered are banned. I'd like them to not make any new bans for a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, use this as a valuation period, right?
Figure out how they're going to use the ban list, right? This has always been, like I said, it's always been a finesse weapon, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to be precise. You're not trying to take huge smashes and slices with what this does. So figuring out what Wizards actually wants from a Commander ban list, which is so different from the ban list that they've managed in, Modern or Legacy or Pauper.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think cutting it down to its bare bones, figuring out what kind of tool this is before they make big decisions on how they're going to use it. We'll see. I think, you and I are both hoping for a fresh start for the ban list and let Commander players sort of think for themselves on this front and see what happens.
Yeah.
We trust you guys to manage how you want to play. And that means speaking up for the kind of cards you don't want to play against, like Braids.
Yeah.
Or, maybe more players than us would rather the ban list have a firmer hand and a longer list. But that is something that remains to be seen.
I mean, we already see stores instituting their own ban list, players that rule 0 in silver bordered cards all the time. So I think we are in the realm now where we're coming into this deeper understanding and consciousness about what a game is and how we can really make it for ourselves in ways that brings us joy. And, for better or worse, players are getting more agency and more sovereignty when it comes to this sort of stuff. And I don't know. And with that comes more responsibility. We will see if that responsibility is something we can handle or not.
To the listeners, which of our conclusions do you disagree with? I'm sure there's a couple of bans unbans we mentioned, that you would not be excited about. What cards would you take off the ban list if given the ultimate power to do so? Not selfishly, smartly. Use your noggin.
And not bans, unbans.
Unbans. Yeah, they promised no bans, so we're not talking about bans today.
Exactly. Of course, if you want to pick up any cards, you can go to cardkingdom.com/command and buy a lot of these cards that we just mentioned today, because maybe you want to rule 0 them in and just see if it will actually make the impact that you think it will or won't. Cardkingdom.com/command, of course, has all of the unbanned cards as well as cards from the new sets. You can get booster packs and all that good stuff. All the goodies, cardkingdom.com/command comes to you in one convenient package. So whether or not you're building a brand new deck with some cool silver border cards to see how that works out, let us know. Please use the affiliate link. It does support the show and the content we make here. And of course, you're going to get the cards you need in a single convenient package at a great speed with great customer service. cardkingdom.com/command.
And of course, you're going to need to protect them. Go to ultrapro.com/command to get sleeves, deck boxes, binders, playmats, everything that you need to be a well accessorized and well organized Magic player. I really like their dice. They've got big, clear dice that are like bright colors. And I like to have all my stuff match, especially when I'm building a new deck. It has like its own dice in a box and it all goes together. It's very fun. Plus, they've got some new products. MagicCon is coming up. You can take a playmat to MagicCon, get a bunch of signatures on it, have the artists that are there draw on it. You can make a real souvenir out of a playmat. You can take it home and pick up the Premier Playmat display item that Ultra Pro has now. So you just snap it in 2 acrylic pieces and you can put it on the wall. Remember MagicCon forever.
I have a couple of playmats I'm planning on doing that with already. So
yeah, I have a couple that are just like from a time where I was like, you know what, this was a very cool Kickstarter. I got this from a friend. It's signed by an artist. Somebody drew on it. There's we have so many playmats, and not all of them are like so many that I love that I don't want to play on because I don't want to ruin it.
I don't want to ruin them.
So it gives you an opportunity to use it without ruining them. Again, go to ultrapro.com/command to support the show while you do so.
All right, big thanks here to our team at the Command Zone who have been really putting in the extra hours to get all this content out to everyone. We really, really super appreciate them. And with no advance notice, right? So they are just absolute heroes. So big shout out to Eric Lem, Rachel Kendra, Gaurav Galati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Josh Murphy, Manson Lung, Karina Cruz, Sebastian Salazar, Evan Limburger, Sam Waldo, and Josh Lee Kwai.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Hope you're doing well and have made it through the last couple of weeks okay.
All right.
Commander's great and fun.
It is.
And I hope you're getting back to playing.
I hope so too. Bye, everyone.
your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.